Hey guys, it's Chris. From creatures that have washed up on the surface of the ocean to tales of creatures and monsters, join me as I tell you about 8 scary things that surfaced from the sea. Number 8. Rogue wave. Anyone who's sailed in seas with massive waves know that there are several things to fear, such as hitting them the wrong way or being caught off guard by them entirely. But few are as terrifying and fearsome as rogue waves. Rogue waves are massive waves that literally come out of nowhere to crash against boats and ships with such terrible impact that many have been sunk because of them. And because the conditions that cause them are so unpredictable and random, they can't be prepared for. So much so that there are various and numerous explanations for how rogue waves came to be and why they're so ferocious. Regardless of how they're born, the reason they're so feared is because they usually are double the size of standard waves, even able to reach 50 to 60 feet in height. The reason they're called rogue is due to the fact that they can come out of nowhere and don't mesh with the usual waves that are out there in the ocean. They're their own entity, and that makes them deadly. Despite them not being studied very much due to the harsh and random conditions they're born in, rogue waves have been caught on camera via the Discovery Channel show Deadliest Catch. Many ships in the fleet have been hit by rogue waves in various forms, and the footage and the captain's commentary talk about how frightening they can be. Number 7. Blobfish. The blobfish is actually a very unique specimen when it comes to the world we live in. You see, the blobfish are a species that live in incredibly deep waters within the oceans and are used to living in places with incredible pressure. So when they're not in those high-pressured areas, they actually transform in a way into a more jelly-like state, which is why it looks like a blob when it's on the surface. Yep, that's right, the form you're seeing now is not its true form, but rather its final form. So I guess it's more ugly than scary. Just catching a blobfish is an incredible endeavor, as no blobfish has ever been caught alive, which is the same for most deep-sea fish. So even if you could catch one, you would have to keep it within a container that exerts the same pressure as the deep ocean, and then transfer it into a cage that has similar pressures, which is practically impossible. The blobfish is just one of many mysteries about the deeper parts of the ocean, as its transformation isn't something that many other aquatic species even have to worry about. Number 6. Beached whales. Seeing this title, you may think, wait a minute, a beached whale isn't scary. It actually happens quite a bit. To which you would be right, and you would also be wrong. Because while beached whales are a certain kind of ocean phenomenon that surfaces semi-frequently, it's also one of the biggest mysteries of the ocean. We've all seen the pictures and footage of people trying to help a whale get off the beach and into the water once more. But have you ever asked, how did it get on the beach in the first place? This is a very serious question, because whales are massive creatures, weighing numerous tons, and are sometimes longer than a bus. The biggest species is that of the blue whale, which can reach over 100 feet in length, and yet they get washed up on the beach for all the world to see. To be clear, they're not just washed up a few inches on the beach, but sometimes several yards. So how does that happen? How does the water have enough grit and power on a beach to throw a whale upon it? Now, a dead whale you might be able to pitch. It might happen given the dead weight and no resistance. However, most beach whales are alive, which means that in part or in whole, the whale allows itself to be washed up on the beach. Scientists truly don't know how these things happen, and that's why it's scary in certain ways. Because when you think about it, it honestly shouldn't happen, and yet it does. So what's actually going on here? We don't know, and that's what makes this a mystery. Number 5. Red tide. The event known as red tide is one of the most dangerous things threatening the ocean and its inhabitants, and it even threatens humanity. Red tide is an event created by red algae when they grow out of control, and it's so toxic that it kills fish and plants that are below it. And if it washes up on the shores of land, it can hurt humans too. It's so virulent that it can even affect the air to make breathing difficult. This event is one that is causing scientists to scramble in order to prevent it from getting too big, but it's hard. Mainly because red tide isn't just a random event, it's one that happens in cycles, which means it can be predicted in some ways, but it's still hard to stop despite knowing where and when it may show up. Another reason that red tide is so feared is that they can be caused very naturally. including by seas or oceans giving nutrients to the surface water and having storms stir up the algae, among other things. Many scientists are working on a fix for red algae, but it's unknown if they'll find anything to help diminish it and its effects. Number 4. Oarfish. The depths of the ocean hide many wonders, and one of those wonders is the oarfish. This is a large fish that is the largest bony fish alive. In fact, the largest one found was 36 feet long. Yet when it was found on the beach, many people thought it was a hoax, mainly because it was too big or too monstrous to be real. Then, when it was proven real, they believed that this was the inspiration for the legends of sea serpents and sea dragons, which is possible because they can be found in places like China, and it's possible they're in other areas too. But since the oarfish prefers to live at massive depths, they're not seen too often on the surface, so it's hard to track them. In fact, some scientists believe that they live at nearly 3,000 feet below sea level. The few times we do see them is when they wash up dead on shore after dying like many other sea creatures in the past. This is due in part to their muscle structure. They're used to the stiller waters of deeper currents, not the currents and tides near the surface. So if it reaches the surface, it's often dead or on the brink of death because its body is being battered by the waters. Adding to their mystery, they're rarely, if ever, caught on video. One such time was the show River Monsters, which was the first time in history they were ever caught on film. Number 3. Mermaids. There are many mythical creatures that have been believed to reside within our world, but probably the one most people think about the most thanks to the ocean is that of mermaids. These creatures are half fish, half woman in most versions, and they've had a large variety of personalities and skills. But which of these is the true state of mermaids? Like many legends, it's hard to say. The first accounts of mermaids come from the Assyria culture, where one of their goddesses took the form of a mermaid in order to punish herself for accidentally killing her lover. Yet in many other cultures, mermaids are basically evil. They lure lonely sailors to the water, drown them, and then eat them. Yet there are also tales of mermaids being loving creatures that have fallen in love with and saved humans in the past. The irony, of course, is that there are many who believe that mermaids actually exist. Sightings of mermaids go back to Christopher Columbus and even before him, and continue to events like a mermaid scare back in Israel and fishermen claiming to have found mermaid weapons and even a mermaid proper in their fishing nets. So as you can see, the belief in mermaids has never been stronger due to their true surfacing never being proven. Number 2. Squids. While we all know about squids in the ocean and how large they can get, between 60 and 80 feet long at max depending on who you believe and what species you're looking at, it was a very long time before we ever got to truly observe a squid. And the first true observation that happened was because of the fact that they started to wash up on beaches. Much like whales, there are a lot of mysteries around how squids end up on beaches. Mainly because most of them live hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of feet below sea level. So when they die, they honestly shouldn't make it to the surface without help. But they do. The common theory is that the ones that died and ended up on the beaches of the world were the ones that were already pretty close to the surface to start off with. Hence, there wasn't much of an issue getting caught in the right tide or current and bringing them ashore. Regardless of the how, the discoveries of squids on beaches helped lead to all sorts of discoveries about the species. And for that, we should be grateful. Scientists are certainly grateful, for even though we don't know everything about giant squids and similar squids of equal size, we are learning. If you're curious, squid beachings still happen to this day. Number 1. Submarine volcanoes. There are many types of volcanoes out there in the world right now, but only one truly surfaces from the ocean, and it can cause a lot of problems when they do. These are known as submarine volcanoes. The kinds of submarine volcanoes vary by where they are in the ocean. For example, there are many volcanoes that are deep in areas of the ocean, so thus, even if they were to erupt, it wouldn't affect the surface that much. However, there are many that are near shallow waters that can erupt, and when they do, they create islands. This is how places like the Hawaiian Islands and Reunion were made. And the good news for those who live near oceans is that eruptions of submarine volcanoes are rare to happen. But when they do erupt, they can cause massive damage, such as when a volcano erupted in 1650 near the island of Santorini, killing 70 people in the process. Much research is going into studying these volcanoes and trying to predict if such eruptions will happen soon. At present, there are believed to be over 1 million submarine volcanoes in the ocean right now. Thanks for watching, everyone. What did you think of these scary things that have surfaced from the oceans? Which is the scariest in your eyes? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time.